Ladies and gentlemen, this is a real interesting piece that came out in the New York Times. And it talks about how there are literally no one having babies. So something is stopping us from creating the family we claim to desire. But what? But y'all don't. You, like I said, they propped up the career and going to college even when I was in the workplace, that's all they talked about. Oh, I'm leaving this job because, I'm looking for a career. Or, oh, you got to work your way up in the company. They would talk like that. Nobody was talking up the family. Nobody. See, now everybody is trying to get on the bandwagon kind of late. So this starts out with Copenhagen and how back in 2015 they start putting up all these posters of chicken eggs and have you counted your eggs, or they would have human sperm. Do they swim too slow? Well, we know they do in America. And what they were doing back in 2015 was driving a campaign for people to have more babies. But as you can see, it failed because they still have low birth rate all over Europe. It doesn't matter what country you're in, it has low birth rate. So all of those campaigns didn't do a thing to increase the birth rate, but it did grow in criticism from the people, you know. And ladies and gentlemen, now they're talking about the Danish, and they have also been struggling with low birth rate, and Denmark's fertility rate has been below replacement level. That is the level needed to maintain a stable population for decades. Dr. Zeeby points out the declines is not solely the result of more people deliberately choosing childlessness. Many of the patients are older couples, and these are the patients that are coming to his fertility clinic. Older couples and single women who want a family, but may have waited until too late. That's divine. That's a spirit on them, y'all. That's a spirit. But the campaign also notably failed to land with some of its prime targets, including Dr. Zeeby's own college-age daughter, after she and several classmates at Copenhagen University interviewed him for a project on the campaign. Dr. Zeeby sought answers of his own. I asked him, now you have gained a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. What are you going to change in your own personal lives? He said. He shook his head. The answer was nothing, nothing. So I guess he was looking for the answer. Well, I guess we better start trying to have babies, and not, those girls ain't thinking about having no babies. If any country should be stocked with babies, it's Denmark. The country is one of the wealthiest in Europe. New parents enjoy 12 months paid family leave. You hear that, America? 12 months paid family leave. America wants to give you 6 weeks only and you get your ass back to work. Worst policies ever. Worse. And highly subsidized daycare. Women under 40 can get state-funded vitro fertilization, but Denmark's fertility rate is at 1.7 births per woman. Do you see that? Despite the fact that they will pay for them to get in vitro treatments, the birth rate is still low because it is not about them, what they do. It's a physical problem. Now, I know they're not going to admit it, but it's a physical problem. You got all this stuff that is subsidized and they are willing to pay for it, and you still got a below 2.1 fertility rate, state subsidized. So these women literally can have their in vitro paid for, and they are still struggling with low birth rate. And of course, they're claiming Denmark um, is is a happy land. Really? Hmm. Interesting. It's not just Danes. Fertility rates have been dropping precipitously around the world for decades. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Now, the last article I did, 1998. So this did not start around the time you start hearing them complaining. It started long before that, y'all. In middle income countries and some low income countries, but perhaps mostly markedly in rich ones. The richer the nation, the lower the birth rate. Now, you have to ask yourself, are these nations that are wealthy, did they all benefit from slavery? Where did they get the bulk of their wealth? Where did it come from? Because slavery also impact was in Europe, and it was impacting even countries that didn't have slavery were still benefiting from slavery. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let these people, and isn't it funny how these wealthy quote unquote nations are the ones struggling to have babies now? Not some of them, y'all. All of them. All of the wealthy nations on the planet are now struggling with a low birth rate. Think about that. Think about that. All of them. Mm-mm-mm. At worst, though, it reflects a profound failure of employers and governments to make parenting and work compatible. Well, you had centuries to do that. Why is all of this just coming up now? You had centuries to do that. In America, I can tell you, in America, it was all about going to college and getting a career. Nobody propped up the family. Of our collective ability to solve the climate crisis so that children seem a rational prospect of our increasingly unequal global economy. In these instances, having fewer children is less a choice than the pungent consequences of a set of unsavory circumstances. Decades of survey data shows that people's stated preferences have shifted towards smaller families. That's true. We certainly don't see the big families that people once had, even in this country, you know? But they also show the country after country actual fertility has fallen faster than notations of ideal family size. In the United States, the gap between how many children people want and how many they have has widened to a 40-year high. In a report covering 28 countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, women reported an average desired family size of 2.3 children in 2016, and men wish for 2.2, but fewer hit their target. Something is stopping us from creating families we claim we want. But what? It's physical. It's physical. Sorry about that. Got disrupted. So I'm going to try to pick up from where I left off, y'all. And you know how it is. I'm not disrupted until I start doing a video. There are as many answers to this question as there are people choosing whether to reproduce. At the national level, what demographers call underachieving fertility finds explanations ranging from the glaring absence of family friendly policies in the United States to gender equality in South Korea to high youth unemployment across Southern Europe. Didn't I tell you that their family policies in the US are horrible? Okay. They want you to return to work in 6 weeks. That's when you should be still bonding with your baby. But very unfriendly family policies in the US. And they keep driving this stuff. They haven't changed it or say, you know what, these policies are not good, especially as far as encouraging people to have families. We're going to make changes. America hasn't even made one change. And you can tell a man came up with those policies because the policies are ridiculous. Okay. It has prompted concerns about public finances and workforce stability. In some cases, contributed to rising xenophobia. But all of these miss the bigger picture. Our current version of global capitalism, one from which few countries and individuals are able to opt out, has generated shocking wealth for some and precarity for many more. These economic conditions generate social conditions and mimical to starting families. Work weeks are longer and our wages are lower. I I did a story. It must have been back over the summer, either spring or summer, and it was saying in China they work from 9 to 9, 6 days a week with only one day off. And some of the people are complaining a lot about that. They're saying it's not enough time off for them to be with their families. But that's the work hours over in China, from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, 6 days a week. That's outrageous. That's outrageous. So, ladies and gentlemen, we know capitalism is a problem, especially in these countries that generated their wealth off of somebody else's back. Yeah. So these folks want to hang on to money and power, and they have so far gave the finger to the family. I guess that's getting in their way of having wealth. Our increasingly winner-take-all economies require that children get intensive parenting and costly educations that they cheat in, creating rising anxiety around what sort of life a would-be parent might provide. A lifetime of messaging directs us towards other pursuits instead of education, work, travel. So, in my opinion, they are still trying to blame everything on everything except for what's physically wrong. I noticed that pattern in all of these articles. They do not want to touch on anything physical. It's the workplace, it's the bad policies, people delaying having babies, waited too long. It's everything except for it's a physical problem. You remember, even in the Bible, it tells you barrenness is a curse. It's a curse. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at barrenness. But nobody is still at the point where they're willing to admit it. Chemicals and pollutants seep into our bodies, disturbing our endocrine systems. But who is putting the chemicals and pollution out here? The very same people that can't have babies. Okay, who's putting that stuff out here? On any given day, it seems that some part of the inherited world is either on fire or underwater. To worry about falling birth rates because they threaten social security systems or future workforce strength is to miss the point. They are a symptom of something much more pervasive. It seems clear that what we have come to think of as late capitalism, that is not just the economic system, but all of its attendant inequalities and dignities, opportunities, and absurdities, has become hostile to reproduction. That ain't it either. That ain't it. That ain't it. That ain't it. Again, I can tell a white person wrote this article because, ladies and gentlemen, they are not going to touch on barrenness. It's a physical thing going on. Around the world, economic, social, and environmental conditions function as a diffuse, barely perceptible contraceptive. And yes, it is even happening in Denmark. Danes don't face the horrors of American student debt, our debilitating medical bills, or our lack of paid family leave. College is free. Income inequality is low. In short, many of the factors that cause young Americans to delay having families simply aren't present. Yeah, but you're still having low birth rate in both places, in Denmark and America. So again, what point are you making? You still got low birth rate in both places. Woo, talk about dancing around the issue. You know, you know what I'm starting to see psychologically? These folks can't admit what's really going on. It's a physical thing. And if it was environmental, we're all living in the same environment. Wouldn't it impact all of us in the same way? How come it's not? I'm serious. We're all living in the same environment. So how can it be environmental? It doesn't make any sense. It is a physical thing. It's something physical. It's something physical. It's something physical to the point where it started impacting the genetics as each generation came into being. The generations before had stronger sperm and a higher sperm count. The generations today have the opposite. So it is something genetically going wrong. It's something in the genetics, y'all. But they don't want to touch that to save their mama's life. This article is quite lengthy, so what I will do, I will leave the link to it in the description box and you can go over it yourself. But ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter. All the things that they're talking about, we're all living through it. We're all living through the chemicals. We're all living through the pollution. We're all living through the bad family policies. We're living through, all of us are living through that. All of us. So again, how do you justify that happening to one group but not all of the others? It's genetic. Their great grandfathers and grandfathers had a high sperm count. The women were more fertile. But this generation is not as fertile as even the women of those times. What does that tell you? Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.